Yo, what up, guys, man? I am back with another video, right? Is debt consuming your life, right? Is credit card debt taking over, right? A lot of times, man, we got holidays, we got birthdays, we got bills. There's so much going on. And a lot of times, guys, the simple thing is you have to use your credit. It could be an emergency situation. And I want to give you guys some tips. And we're going to talk about consolidating versus a balance transfer. Now, both of these strategies can be beneficial. So we're going to dig into both. We're going to talk about consolidating. And we got a little line going through because we're going to really kind of go through each. Now, when we're looking at the benefits of consolidating. Now, I have a full video on what consolidation is, right? It's pretty much consolidating all of your bills. So let's say you have 5 credit cards. It's consolidating all of that debt into one bill, right? Now, you can consolidate with a personal loan. So essentially, let's say you have $10,000 in credit card debt. You're consolidating that total $10,000 from each of those cards, and then you're going to consolidate by getting a personal loan at a lower interest rate. That's the whole benefit when it makes sense. At a lower interest rate to turn those 5, 6 different credit cards that you may have into one loan, right? Now, a balance transfer. It's super important to understand. Now, a balance transfer is simply when you are transferring your balance from one credit card to another credit card. Now, you may say, well, why would that make sense? Why would I transfer a balance from one credit card to the other credit card? I still owe the credit. The reason is interest rates. It costs to borrow money. I know people like to give it to y'all in this very glamorous, fantasy type of way, but it costs to play. It costs to borrow money. So the reason why a balance transfer will make sense is because of the lower interest rate or a zero. Have you ever got a pre-approval or a promotional offer that said 0% interest rate for the first 12 months? That is why it will make sense. Now, let's say with your balance transfer, right? You have to have high credit limits in order to do this, depending on where your credit card debt is at. So remember, we said if you have $5,000 in credit card debt, you're transferring that $5,000 over to a card that has more, that has a higher limit. So one important thing about a balance transfer is your credit limit, right? Because it wouldn't make sense for you to transfer a $5,000 balance onto a credit card that only has a $5,000 limit, because now we maxed out and we don't want to do that. I tell you guys this all the time. One thing you do not want to do is max out your credit cards. It is a big no-no. So we only want to do this depending on your credit limits, depending on a promotional offer. Now, the key here with the balance transfer as well is once you transfer the balance, it takes a certain discipline in order for you now to suppress that other credit card that you had. Because what we don't want to do is transfer the balance over, and then now we have the original credit card debt at zero, right? Because we transferred the balance over, but then now we're reusing the card, and then now we're racking up. Not only we transferred the debt, but now we're racking up new debt again after the transfer. So you want to be very mindful when it comes to that balance transfer. It is going to take discipline, right? Your credit limits and your spending power will be a factor, okay? Now, on the consolidation side, we're talking about a personal loan. And we're talking about consolidating that debt into one loan, right? Into one loan. But once again, we don't want to consolidate the debt, right? The 5,000 or 10,000 in debt. We don't want to consolidate that with a personal loan. We don't want to consolidate that with a personal loan and then reuse the credit. Because what it's doing is it's going to put us in more debt. If we do not show that discipline and actually be able to kind of suppress using that credit. Now, mind you, I tell you guys this all the time. If you have credit cards, you only have to really make a purchase like once every 6 months in order to keep that card active. So understand, it's super important for us to know. It's super important for us to understand. And it's super important to know what is better for you, right? We talked about the balance transfer. Are you able to, are you in a situation, do you have the opportunity to transfer your balance? Do you have the opportunity to get the personal loan? So your credit score will be a factor on both sides, right? But the whole point is this, is to stop the bleeding. So now when you're able to stop the bleeding, not only is you able to lower your utilization, which in return is going to help your credit score go up, but if we stop the bleeding early with one of these two strategies right here, then now you're able to maintain a pretty healthy credit score in that process. But what happens when we ignore debt, what happens when we ignore collectors, we ignore charge-offs, we ignore balances, you got to remember, when you using these people money, remember, you're using it. So always keep it in your mind that it's super important to pay it back. Now, things happen, right? Life happens, things happen. So you can consider consolidating through a personal loan or consolidating through a balance, through a balance transfer and be able to kind of stop that bleeding. It will take some discipline. Your credit score will be a factor, but this is definitely an option for you, right? Now we're consolidating and we have one bill opposed to 5, right? And I've talked to a lot of people that just simply says like, oh man, I knew I had that bill, but I forgot about it. So then imagine if you had 5 of them, right? So imagine you got Chase due on the 23rd, you got American Express due on the 12th, you got Discovery due on the 1st, you got Wells Fargo due on the 6th, and you got all these different due dates. So a lot of the benefits to this is not only consolidating, getting more organized, right? Lowering our utilization, because credit card debt, when we talk about keeping it below that 30%, it says to lenders that you are responsible and that you are not desperate. You gotta look at it from the other side of the coin. If you're desperate, if we maxing out, if we going crazy, well, I want to give you more money. I want you to think of the homie. I want you to think of somebody you know. If that person came to you 5 days a week, every day they need $100, they need $100, they need $100, you're going to say, oh, this person is strapped for cash, man. I don't even know how they're going to be able to pay me back. So we want to be mindful of our utilization. We want to be mindful of how much we're applying for credit. We want to be mindful of these things because guess what? The more debt we get in, the more debt that you get in while you already have these balances going on, it makes it more difficult to organize and more difficult to maintain, right? So consider these strategies. No, you don't have to have great credit. You can have fair credit and get approved for a personal loan. You can have fair credit and get a balance transfer, but you do want to consider your options. You do want to consider your circumstance and what is best for your specific situation. When I give advice to people, I give advice based on your specific situation, guys. So consider consolidating if you are in tons and tons of debt, whether it be a personal loan or whether it be a balance